Okay. Alright, welcome back to I was reincarnated as a seventh prince, so I could take my time perfecting my magical ability. Anime review, episode number 13. We're here reviewing the 18th episode of the series, Escher's Secret. Ooh. So, we open up Babylon in bed, where everybody basically saw what happened to him. And then, of course, a nun comes in. Of course, they don't trust her because she's part of the church. So then she proceeds to sing to him, which somehow heals him because later in the episode he's perfectly fine. And at one point they mentioned she was singing for 12 straight hours without running out of mana, which is interesting thanks to divine magic. Of course, it comes by later on in the episode. And then afterwards, we pick up right where we left off last episode, where we have the four party, the prince, Sybil, and the nun, where they all go like down below. I think also the guild girls there too. So basically, they're in the chemical lab. They basically they wandered into last episode. Of course, Lloyd basically is reading research notes. He points out though it's an alchemy lab, and you're like, wait, Lloyd, you're in alchemy? He just happened to know this. Just cuz. And excuse me. For those of you curious though, was like some kind of magic person, so well, probably because basically it was the only reason why my guess is the reason why he guessed the fact it was alchemy. Probably because it's quite obvious. Tao was not there with them, so they look around the laboratory and excuse me, and so. Then they're like, oh, it's so monster. Like, oh, this is similar to the golems they're fighting in 2 episodes ago. And then they come across Alemia. This is interesting because this is a type of creature for me personally, I have not come across this one very much in anime. This is a very rare occurrence. Alemia is a half woman, half snake woman. Half human, half snake woman, half snake. Of course, the two most notorious ones basically I've seen with this type of monster in it, or at least this creature, is in Musume and Matsuko Doctor, where in both shows they were in fact the female leads of the show. So Lloyd tells them, don't kill her, just try to stop her, which they do. Excuse me. And they succeed no problem in stopping her. And apparently, because of her becoming like this, she has lost her memories and her name. She's never her name, so they gave the name her Alemia. So Lloyd, it took time, despite the fact they were dismantling the lab, proceeded to pick up all the research notes. Of course, this mysterious pastor, who this person is, they don't really say. But the angel kind of knows who he is. So they do come across basically his cross. The weird thing about the church in this world is that, well, in real life, churches consider magic associated with Satan worship. Kind of in a way, but it's not downright forced on people, so that's an edict by churches. I think it's more the case of the Catholic Church might see it that way. But some of the Catholic Church, but the thing is, no one practices magic in real life. So, for them using divine magic, that's interesting. And they mentioned, oh yeah, the fact it's run by a pope, and the fact there is like 12 bishops, 2 of whom happen to be women. Which, this is interesting, because the real life Catholic Church doesn't have female bishops. Not that I know of, anyways. Not even the cardinals. None of them are women. Nope, it's all old men. If you're really curious, is there actually any female bishops in real life? Yes. As a matter of fact, there is. In the Lutheran Church, they actually have female bishops. Well, excuse me, the Lutheran denomination, of course. Yes. They have female bishops. I'm not sure about the other denominations, but I know the Lutheran does. As a matter of fact, the presiding bishop, the one who runs the ELCA, at one point was a woman. Yep. Presiding bishop kind of in a way acts like the Pope, basically someone who runs this particular organization for Lutheran churches. Of course, there were some churches who left the ELCA, formed the NACLA, purely because of a weird, confusing thing involving allowing people who are homosexuals becoming pastors. And these churches were apparently not for that at all, so these churches all left and formed their own separate organization. And when it comes to Lutheran denomination, there's kind of about 4 different ones. You have the 2 big ones, obviously. There's also Missouri Synod and Wisconsin Synod. One of these 2, they have this weird rule of, and I've heard this from my pastor. So the weird rule is, they cannot worship with non-Missouri Synod, I think it was Missouri Synod, this was, non-Missouri Synod members. One person who did this in public was basically tried by the Missouri Synod and kicked out for this. Yes, because he dared to worship with non-Missouri Synod Lutherans. Yes, that was a thing. I bring this up because I know about stuff related to the Lutheran denomination because I am a Lutheran. That's how I know that stuff. So, back to this. So, then of course they don't trust a particular pastor, and we find out later on in the episode what's going on, because this is a really cool post-credits thing we have here for this one. So, then of course, Lloyd's elder brother, the second prince, looks around, dismantles the lab, and maybe we should call it a festival. Not really. So, he sends a letter to the Pope to basically separate the bishops from himself. But, excuse me, the letter gets intercepted by another bishop. A bishop by the name of Bishop Angela. And she reads it, and then proceeds to go to what appears to be a storage closet, taps her feet on the floor, and open up this door, which has obviously a chimera's hand on it. If you have a Christian, if you have someone who is a actual minister see this, they probably think that's a freaking demon, even though it's a chimera. And did you know at one point, basically, that the Catholic Church considers scientists heretics? Yes, seriously. That was a thing. It's like because it's not what they teach, they think science basically was just like, it's backwards thinking or whatever. That's kind of how the church thinks when it comes to that. So, then the mysterious pastor, don't know who this is. By the way, his cross ended up around the neck of Lloyd's big dog. So they theorize, and of course, make it the 12 bishops thing. Now, according to the angel, he says he's the one who technically gives the Pope power, and someone he trusts, and then the 12 bishops are people the Pope trusts. Which, okay. I'm glad we got an explanation for that, because as far as I can tell, now in case you're curious though, religion does not usually, in the case of fantasy worlds per se, a lot of the time religion doesn't come up very much. It very rarely ever does. If it does, sometimes these people who are religious are complete dicks. Like in the case of Afria, where they dare try to brand the main character heretic because he dare do stuff they don't want him to do, and also because he dare try to go to war with their god, who is a complete dick, who sees the world as his own chessboard. That's how the series is written. In the most smartphone, you have it, people that are quite nice. Sometimes they're nice people, sometimes they're not. It depends upon basically how stuff like this works. That's kind of how religion works in the Japanese media, where they may be good, they may be bad. Sometimes they're basically full of their own nonsense. It goes against what their doctrine preaches, because they think they're in the right. That's kind of basically how it works. In real life, the pastors who I've met are very nice people. Yes, I met some people who are not part of the Lutheran denomination, and they're the nicest people we can meet. Yes, I've never come across a pastor who was not nice. Yes, I get the fact it's part of their job being nice, but generally put, they're very nice people. Yep. But that's kind of how it is. But overall, great episode. I can't believe we're only halfway through the season. Yes, we're only halfway through, which is awesome. Yep, so yes, that's pretty much the particular video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. Okay, those of you who have a problem when I talk about stuff like this, please feel free to talk about the comments below. Yes, when it comes to religion, I don't really talk about it very much at all. I mean, this first time I pointed out the fact that I'm Lutheran. First time I pointed out about that. Because I don't necessarily talk about this stuff. But I just happen to know stuff like this because I read about it. And plus, I go to church. Like any normal person would do. I get the fact that everybody goes to church. And not everybody in the country is a Christian. Some people might be Jewish or Buddhist. But it's how people practice their religion, per se. Okay, so I will see you all tomorrow for our views for Super Sentai, Dr. Stone, Donovan, and New Saga. Okay, thanks for you. Tomorrow. Bye.